Hello there, it's Tom here, and this is Chapter 6 of Gunnerkrigg Court, A Handful of Dirt. I've heard from quite a few readers that say that this is their favourite chapter. Even now, as of the time of this recording, there are 49 chapters online. People still refer back to this chapter as something they really enjoyed in the comic, and I'm glad it worked out that way because I'd set things up in such a way that I wanted to reveal the more emotional side of Annie in this chapter. Up till now, she's been very stoic and stone-faced, and aside from a little hint that she gives Kat about something happening with her mom before attending the court, she seems very introverted and unable to express emotion. That was something I'd done intentionally because I wanted there to be a point in the story where it was explained why Annie is so stoic. And just a note about the artwork in this chapter, I front-loaded the first few pages with backgrounds that were slightly more detailed than normal. This was because I knew that once they get into the room with the tree in it, the backgrounds would be fairly simple, since it's just a blue, sort of hazy background. And I like to do things like that in the comic, showing contrasts with the artwork, especially the environments that they're in. The hallways that they're walking through at the moment are very purple and coloured with very cold colours, like a lot of the rest of the court. But once they enter the room that Kat is taking Annie to, I switch over to a much warmer colour palette. I tried to give every area of the court its own unified colour palette, just so each area seems unique and recognisable if they were to return to these places in the future. So here we see Kat opening the door to the sun chamber and showing Annie that there is a tree in the middle of a hill. And this tree is actually based on two trees, amazingly enough. One of the trees, if you come around my house, I can take you over and see it. It's a tree that's just alone on a hill, just on the way towards Litchfield. It wouldn't take too long. We can get in my car and take a drive up there. The other tree it's based on is a cherry tree that was in my parents' back garden, and I remember having the idea for this chapter while looking at the tree one summer when the cherries had grown in, so this chapter was directly influenced by that moment. And we can see here that all the detail has left the background and it's now very much in the foreground, and elements like pipes and vents and grates are replaced with just the bark of the tree and the cherries and the leaves hanging down. We also see that it's the first time in the comic that Annie seems to freely smile, and it's really the first time you see that she just acts like a normal kid, even acting quite silly later on when Kat falls out of the tree. Very different to the way that she's acted up until now in the comic. I wanted it to seem almost in the same way that the colour tone shifted when they moved from the interior of the court to this sun chamber. I wanted Annie's behaviour to be quite a big contrast as well. And instead of just being a very stony-faced girl that doesn't show much of her emotions, here she goes from laughing one moment to crying about her mother the next. And this dude here knows that it's better just to leave them to it for a while. And Kat tries to comfort her. Kat even admits that she's never really lost anybody, but she just seems to be a lot more emotionally apt than Annie is, and she tries to empathise with her and comfort her. When this is where we find out that Annie's dad seems to have disappeared, something that Annie was keeping to herself. And the chapter just closes on Kat offering to ask her parents to try and find Annie's dad. And to me, it's really the point in the comic where Annie and Kat go from just being two people that hang out with each other to actually being good friends. And this is the bonus page for this chapter. It's just a chance to poke fun at Renardine, even though he never again calls himself Renardine the Great. Kat just lets him borrow some of her favourite toys. And incidentally, these are in no way copyrighted characters, or bear any resemblance to any copyrighted characters. These figures are Hellman, Flying Mouse Warrior, and Scrumply Agent Chip Handful. Nah, that's not true. Sorry I fooled you. I don't like to shy away from benign references to pop culture things. Earlier on in the chapter, Kat mentions that she reads Batman, instead of saying something vague like, I read superhero comics. And I really don't mind passing references like that in stories, because to me it seems a lot more realistic than the writer trying to go out of their way to replace either a brand name or a very well-known name with a super generic name. Anyway, that's the end of this chapter. Come back for Chapter 7 of New and Old.